Scott is telling is a very common one, that when you're starting a new business in the service area, you can do it while you keep your current day job, or in his case, current student job, and then work on it nights, weekends, that sort of thing, and get it launched before you give up that paycheck, or get your degree, as you did in your case. Elias, you want to elaborate a little bit more on this same issue?
It's all about contacts. I mean, you could have an ass-kicking product, but the contacts really plays a big time in the equation. I wasn't really in fundraising process of the Newbridge and Uri system, but Telezoo and Searchles. With Telezoo, I remember I had stock option cashed out from my last two companies, so I put in $200K myself. But then I also remember I raised remember this is the pre-bubble. I raised $150,000 from friends by just selling $1 per share to them. Then I also raised another round of 1.7 million from another angel investors. Then I brought the company with that money, roughly about $2 million, a little bit over $2 million. I made the company practically generating revenue, where no company were making no internet company does it, they were making any money. But since we generated revenue, once we got some traction, and once the news went out that we have revenue, I didn't have to go through after the investors. The investors came after us. We dealt with the Lazard venture based in Bethesda. I also remember they wanted to give us they gave us $5 million, and I said no, I want $3 million. It was not that good. With that total of $5-6 million, I gave up about 15% of the company. But with the second company, with Searchles, I gained a lot of contact during the Telezoo days. So once I got involved with Searchles, it was much less challenging. All I had to do is pick up the phone, call the friends. I need 100, I need 200 here. I raised roughly about $2 million from just two people that they knew me. So I think, yeah, definitely you need to have a strong contact. I know many of my friends, not many of them, a couple of them, they have a fantastic product. You don't know anyone, you don't know the right contact, you're going to have a tough time to raise funds.
Could you elaborate, Elias, on that one example you gave of someone that wanted to invest $5 million, and you said no, only $3 million? Explain that.
With $5 million, they would have taken more of the company.
Right. Dilute your personal ownership would have been diluted.
Yeah, exactly. At that time, really, the product with the $2 million angel funding from family and friends, I had already built the product. I was already generating revenue, so all I needed, additional fund to market the product. And based on the calculation that I did, $3 million was even way more than enough. So if I hadn't launched a product, if I was at the ground zero, yes, I would take that $5 million. But it was good days of late 90s, early 2000. I could afford with $3 million funding from them.
Sure. Very good. Thank you all. A related question I wanted to ask, and that is about other obstacles you faced when you were starting your business, aside from raising the money. And clearly there weren't huge obstacles for Ashok or for Scott because they were starting service businesses. So I want to hear what the other major obstacles were. Ashok, you want to start off? We'll just go down the line again.
Sure. It's all about in service business, many businesses, you said, is getting the business, getting the contact and having people to buy your service. In my case, it's a little different. Since we started too young, I don't look young now, I'm not young, but at that time it was, and believe it or not, it was viewed against me. I will go
very common issue to face. Scott?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously, capital was one that we've already talked about is having the cash, contacts, and having that network is important. And I won't kind of elaborate on that again. But one of the really difficult things, and when I started my business, it was pre-internet, so there was a lot of things I didn't know, and it was hard to get information about in terms of how you just run a business, start a business. I mean, I think some of that may be easier today because of the internet and the availability to information. But obviously, we were trying to form a business to support the U.S. government, specifically the military intelligence communities. And the regulations in that business are tremendously difficult to navigate in terms of trying to establish yourself, get contracts. The fact that we were working in this environment, we also needed security clearances. And it's really difficult because it's a little bit of a chicken and the egg scenario in terms of working in this business environment. In order to get security clearances, you have to have a sponsor, meaning you have to have a contract. Well, you can't get the contract unless you have the clearances in place. So, it's a really difficult road to hoe to get established. The good news in this community, though, is that once you get knocked down some of those, what I call barriers to entry, that gives you some strategic advantage, too, because once you're in some of these communities, you've got capability, you build up a past performance record, and they know you and that you deliver quality work, you've got good people that work for you, you can really get going. But there's a lag time in terms of that to build up that acceleration and to build up that speed to build the business. So it took us, I would say, a good 3 years to really kind of get established, get all the pieces in place. But once we did, and we persevered and we were patient, then we really started experiencing some good growth, and we're able to diversify and grow the business. But it does take some time, especially in the kind of nature of the work that we were doing to get going.
The greatest obstacle in my days, I mean, even though contacts are really important, but that wasn't my problem. I had enough contacts, I had cash. The greatest obstacle for me was a pricing model. The product that we created, this was my first company that from ground zero I was involved. I couldn't figure out the pricing model. I remember we hired multiple firms.
Is this Telezoom?
Yes, in 1999. We hired some firm, but since the product was brand new, even the consulting firm, they couldn't help us with pricing model. It took us a year to figure out the right pricing model. And the other obstacle was finding the right CEO, executive management. When I started Telezoom, I was the CTO and the founder. I really didn't have experience being a CEO, especially when you land $5 million in the bank account. So I went through hell to just find the CEO, and we found the CEO. Here's another challenge. Our investors found the CEO. I was honest with them. I said, look, I can't interview a CEO. I don't know what to ask them. So I let the investors handle the interview. And unfortunately, a year and a half later, we learned that it was the wrong CEO. So the board had to fire him, and they put me, but that a year and a half gave me enough time to learn how to act like a CEO, what to do, how to think like a CEO. So then I became the CEO of the company. So in a nutshell, for me, it was the pricing model and the right executive running the show, execute the company.
Great, 3 great answers.